Hi guys, this is Adil again with another vlog, and this time our focus is on one of the most important things in buying a property, that is called a sales advice notice. So many people who want to buy the property, they do not know what a sales advice notice can do and who actually issues them. So we will discuss at length what is a sales advice notice. So without further wait, let's jump it in. So when you are going to hunt a property, there are normally two procedures to buy a property. Number one is actually called an auction, which is very thrilling, very exciting. People have the conditional approval from their mortgage brokers or from the bank. They usually go and hunt the property everywhere. And finally, when the property is on the auction, and normally 90% of the auctions are on Saturdays. So when you go and buy a property on Saturday, the agent usually asks you, do you have a conditional approval? And your answer is yes, we have the conditional approval. So you know this thing that if you actually make bids and your bid is successful, then you have to buy a property today with a 5% deposit. And the answer is obviously we are ready, because that's what our mortgage broker have told us. So when you bid and you become successful and you buy that property, so the agent actually give the property to you, they sit down and they actually exchange the contract themselves, because they are auctioneers and auctioneers are allowed to exchange the contracts. So there is no sales advice in that process. The second procedure to buy a property in Australia is actually called the private treaty sale, in which a person can actually go find out the property which he likes, and then he and his family loves that property. They make a formal offer. The offer is taken by the agent, give it to their vendors. The vendors finally decide the offer is to be accepted or not. And finally, when the offer is accepted, then the procedure is starting, which is a very, very important step over here, which we are discussing today. So the agent comes back to you and say, congratulations, your offer is accepted. Now I need some details from you. And those details are you and your background, what's your full name, your telephone number, email address, your address, who is your mortgage broker, either it's a bank or it's a private mortgage broker, what is his details, and the final thing is who is your solicitor, like whether he or she is actually a company or is he or she working as an individual. So all of these things are actually combined into the sales advice notice. Who issues the sales advice notice? The sales advice notice can only be issued by the selling agent on behalf of the vendors. So my first thing is, what is a sales advice? It's actually a written advice from the agent to the solicitors on both sides. Both sides means the vendor solicitor and the purchaser solicitor. And that sales advice also goes to the mortgage broker if you are taking any loans from the bank, or if you are taking any loans from like any company or something. So there are complete details of yours. There is also a detail of the selling agent. There's a detail of the property. So whether the property has a 30-day settlement period, whether it's a 45 days or a 60-day, 90-day, or a 4-month or 6-month settlement period. Everything has been written into the sales advice. And sales advice is a very, very important document. As soon as the solicitor receives the sales advice on behalf of the purchasers, they actually communicate with the vendor solicitors and their communication starts. So that is actually the very first step of sales advice notice. When your offer is accepted, so then basically the sales advice is to be issued on behalf of the vendor's solicitor that the offer has been accepted. Now, going along with this point, so why do agents issue a sales advice? Because the agent actually accepts the offer on behalf of their vendors, and they have to issue the sales advice notice. So it means it's a sales instructions to the purchaser's solicitor and the mortgage broker that they have some time in this sales advice so that to finalize the loan of their client, the purchaser's loan, so that we can actually finally exchange the contract between each other. So the law related to the sales advice is, if you have actually issued the sales advice to both solicitors and the mortgage broker, normally most of the agents actually mark the property under offer. So what does under offer means? Under offer means that the property's offer has been accepted. Most buyers do not realize it, and they start calling the agent. Even though they see the property, it's marked under offer. If you actually mark it under offer on any platforms, whether it's a realestate.com, it mentions property under offer. Whether it's an all home, it also mentions the same, or Zango, or any other thing domain. So they always mention the property is under offer, but there is no price coming on that. For example, normally it has been noticed that even though the property is under offer, the selling agent usually receives email or calls or messages from the other buyers. So is this property exchanged? Is it property is sold? It's marked under offer. What does that mean? It's pretty simple. The thing is, when the purchaser's offer has been accepted by the vendors, so they have actually given the time to the vendors, to the purchasers, to exchange the contract. The most important point I mentioned over here is the time. So what do you mean by the time? The purchaser got some time to exchange the contract when the sales advice has been issued. What is the normal time period in ACT? I'm not talking about New South Wales or Queensland or Victoria. That's different legislation over there. I'm talking about only Canberra, ACT. The time mentioned about the sales advice is only 14 days, including the holidays. So normally there are 10 business days. So in 10 business days, your mortgage broker needs to work out and finalize all that loan approval on behalf of their clients, the purchaser, and they actually give the final approval to the purchaser's mortgage solicitor so that the solicitor can finally exchange the contract and the property is sold. So 14 days time is there. So can it be possible that this 14-day time can be extended? In most of the cases, and it happens to me as well, that sometime this time can be extended. So normally the banks are quite slow. And what actually happens that if the sales advice has been issued on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, so the thing is, the next 2 weeks is the time for the purchaser to sort out their finance and try to exchange the contract. So he still has 14 days to exchange the contract. So still, when they receive it on a Monday morning, they start working on it and they have full 2 weeks to get their loans sorted out. So there is actually a very important point over here which I want to discuss here. So what is actually the law that does issuing a sales advice means that the property is sold? You cannot open the property. What's going on? Normally speaking, when you issue the sales advice notice as agent, you are not allowed to publicly open the property for the next 2 weeks. You need to give the time to the purchaser to sort their finance approved, even though it's marked under offer or not, but he cannot open the property. The agent cannot open the property because he has to actually give the time to the purchaser to actually sort their finance approved, or they can get their finance approved. Does that mean that the under offer means the property is sold? It's not sold. It's under offer. It's under offer means the offer has been accepted, but it's not exchanged yet. So this is the most important point, or the step, I would say, in the buying procedure of buying a property, is to get the sales advice notice. So sales advice notice has a validity of 14 days. It means the offer has been accepted, and it has the details of everyone in this transaction. It's an agent, it's the mortgage broker, it's the seller's solicitor, it's purchaser's solicitor. Everything is there, and the property detail as well. So, but remember this thing, in the ACT, it is very, very important that you should get your finance approved in the time period. Some cases, the agent or the agent vendors provide more than 14 days to exchange the contract. So today's video is we discussed about sales advice notice and how does it work in this market, and what does that supposed to mean.